looks like we're all present on the county floor. I'd like to reconvene the board from a closed session. There are no reportable items that need to be reported today. So with that, I would like you to ask you to stand, and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public comment. Per Board Policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time on an agenda item or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker, with a maximum time of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. With that, are there any comments today concerning items that are on the agenda? None. Public comments concerning items that are not on the agenda? None as well. All right, we will move to board and executive staff reports. And we obviously do not have a student trustee report today. Board reports, starting to my left with Mr. Zumwalt.
None.
None.
None?
None.
I would like to report that as we do on an annual basis, the board annually completes what we refer to as a board self-evaluation report. And we do that by answering a questionnaire, and also some open-ended questions, which I then take from each board member, summarize, and report back to the board. I do not give them a grade. If I did, I would give them an A. So with that, we did complete that today, and that item is completed for the year of 2018. A lot of these questions that the board addresses are based on our board goals and policies, etc. So that came to a conclusion today. I have nothing else to report, and so we will move to Mr. Foster with the foundation report.
Hello, trustees. President Kierso. I wanted to report on our COS Scholarship Night. We had 400 in attendance, a little over 400 in attendance of students, donors, volunteers. We were able to celebrate 448 awards to 312 students for a total of $419,650. Those are only the scholarships that the COS Foundation facilitates. There's many more dollars that are going to our students through their high schools, through other outside groups that in some cases funnel through the COS Foundation that aren't counted in this, or are happening directly to the student. But 419 is a jump above what we did last year, which was 402, although we had a larger number of awards last year. We had 482 awards, so the average award increased over that time. I mentioned to you last year that we did this little exercise of identifying students that met the criteria of an outside scholarship, which was the Reese for Kids Foundation Scholarship, and we just invited them to apply. And we were successful in getting several awards from that process last year. This year, though, it worked out even better. The students applied. Our students received 22 of the 29 possible awards. These are $2,500 awards apiece. So that was an extra $55,000 to our students that, thanks to some cooperation between their foundation, our foundation, and simply encouraging the students to apply to this foundation that they met the criteria, they were able to get an extra $55,000 for. And these are COS transfer students that are transferring onto a four-year university. We had a great time with participating in the graduation this year. Once again, we were able to put the license plate frames on every seat for the graduating students, and it was an invitation for them to join our alumni association. We also launched a alumni apparel line that has the COS Giant embroidered on the chest and a couple, both a polo shirt, a jacket, and a couple of hats. And those are all going to be available online at cos.edu/alumni. That is cos.edu/alumni. Our board is also pleased to announce that we have selected our Hall of Fame inductees. The 1957 baseball team is the only team thus far that has made it to the state championships. We have about 9 of them that are still with us, and so we're going to be celebrating them. Mr. Harry Tao, he's a longtime civil engineer, local civil engineer, businessman, and city leader. He will be inducted this year. Mr. Dr. Derry Padois, he is a doctor, professor, and leading authority on ACL injury prevention, and he went through our sports medicine program. And then Alan Weichman. He's an engineer and developer of many top secret aeronautic projects, primarily for military, including the Lockheed bomber Blackbird. And he could tell us a lot more, but he'd have to kill us all. So he's still very much involved. In fact, he's been a challenge to reach because where he goes into these conferences, he can't bring a cell phone. He can't be contacting anybody. So it's pretty interesting, but he will also be the inductee. So those are our 4 inductions for the 2018 Hall of Fame.
When did he go through COS?
Good question. I believe it was in the 60s,
Okay.
early 60s.
You have to have been a student here to be in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, you have to have participated in class or been a member of the
Harry Tell
trustees.
qualifies?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He
We
did
did.
good.
We did verify. We had to
Are you
remind him, but
questioning
we.
that he can make it
we
to
did
I want to
college?
see his transcripts.
He was also mayor at one time.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So we're gonna. Of course, we're getting their whole dossier right now from them and their nominating body. So we'll be able to celebrate those folks and put all those details in there as well.
Don't misinterpret, I think Harry Tell is a great person. I just didn't know he was a student here.
He
It's
was.
good you're doing videos of him rather than letting him speak.
Indeed.
He loves to talk. so.
Oh, really? Good. Thank you for that warning. Because usually the acceptance is live, so we'll make sure we emphasize the 5-minute rule and have the long cane.
We call
that
it the Al Branco rule.
Yeah.
Brett, you got to take some lessons from Stan.
How to cut them off.
We also have some upcoming events that will get you through the summer. There is the COS football golf tournament that's happening July 30th. It'll be at Ridge Creek Golf Club. We have the COS football kickoff dinner, which is August 18th, and that will be at the Porter Fieldhouse. So our coach, Joe DiAgostino, is planning these 2 fundraising events. You may remember the springtime crab feed that the football
Right.
players, they moved this to a dinner, sit-down dinner at the beginning of the season, and it's going to be more of a Meet the Giants kind of format in that way. And then lastly, the Rotary Brew Fest is happening here at the Porter Fieldhouse on August 2nd. I neglected to give you the handout that has this listed, so Phil, I will be sending you an email that just catches you up on those 3 items, okay? And just lastly, I wanted to thank President Carasosa for his involvement and support in the COS Foundation and his involvement in increasing the community investment in COS. So thank you, Stan.
Tim, I think I know why they canceled the football crap feed, because the last one I attended, and as you probably will recall, my cell phone went out with the scraps of the crab.
Yes, yes. I found the dumpster that those trash bags were in by smell only, but didn't find that.
Did you actually lose it for good?
Oh, yeah, it was good.
They just didn't think they could top that. So we've lost the board president's phone in the crab. So let's just end that event.
Only somebody from Tulare can get his food and his phone mixed up.
I had it coming. All right, next up, I suppose we don't have any other questions for Mr. Foster, since he's already sitting down. Next up is Dr. Lacerna with the pending accreditation report.
I'll hold that until the action item on 13.
Okay, very good. All right. Superintendent President's report is next.
I would like to defer my time this evening to allow a couple new staff and new management folks to be introduced. And I'm going to start by introducing Dr. Lacerna, who will come up, talk about our new faculty.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I have the honor of introducing our two newest faculty hires, so I'm going to ask them to come stand up here. And Brian, you're going to be first, so you guys come stand right here. So the first one, I get to introduce Brian Enra, and Brian is our new construction technology professor. We had a retirement this year, and so our replacement coming up will be Brian. And so Brian has a bachelor's degree in youth ministry from Briarcrest Bible College, which I found out is in Saskatchewan, Canada, Caronport. So I didn't know where that was, but we talked about it before. Brian has a California contractor's license and was co-owner of a construction business for 8 years, and then owned his own construction business for 4 years. And most recently, currently he's at the city of Porterville as their building inspector. And he has taught for us adjunct in our construction trades program, and will be coming in as our full-time faculty member. So I want to present Brian. Congratulations.
Thank you, and would just like to say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. What an opportunity it is for me. I'm humbled by it, and so I look forward to it. I feel like I have some pretty big shoes to fill, but very excited for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Brian, what kind of contractor's licenses do you hold?
I carry a General B license.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian.
All right, and our second faculty member is our new head track and field coach and our physical education professor. And as you recall, our existing this year coach was Curtis Allen, and he left to go to UCLA, and he's now a coach there. And so we were able to hire a full-time coach for next year, and that is Mr. Kenny Jackson. So I'm excited to have Kenny on board. Kenny attended Bakersfield Community College before getting his bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies from the University of Central Florida. He has a master's degree in human performance in sports administration from New Mexico University, and he's been working at COS for the past year as one of our student success coordinators. And when Curtis left in the start of the semester, Kenny stepped in to serve as our interim head coach for our COS track and field. And Kenny kept the team together, and they achieved a third place finish in the state track and field championship meet. So he did an incredible job stepping in at the last minute, working with a huge team. I think there's 80, how many kids are on the team? Students, I should say?
Students, we had a little over 46.
46 students, kept them all together, and did a great job in their finish this year. So I'm really excited to have Kenny on board, so help me welcome Kenny.
All right, well, first I'd just like to say thank you to the president, administration, the hiring committee, and everyone in their respectable places. I've been a part of the COS community for close to 10 years now. I've had roles as a student success coordinator, as a coach, as a mentor, and over that decade I've developed, matured professionally, and I stand before you humble, and I thank God for this opportunity. On the athletic side of it, I'm excited. We have huge, shoes to fill. Of course, we won a state championship the year before I got the job, but there's a plan in place. I have the staff together by Wednesday, and we plan to recruit, and just keep things afloat.
Kenny, just a couple of things. Jennifer mentioned that you ended up at University of Central Florida, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Weren't they the national football champions this year?
Yes, we were.
They were so good that their coach left and is now the head coach at University of Nebraska, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I think they would have beaten Alabama head-to-head.
Thank you. I tell everybody that, they don't believe it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I used to be a half monitor, so if you get really desperate, I'm available.
Chief Meisner made a joke to me the other day. He told me he was going to pull up the log of all the convicts that got away, that ran away from him. And he was going to give me the list of them so I could recruit them.
Not a good idea.
Second chance.
That's a good one.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then, at this time, I'd like to call up our provost for the Hanford Center, Dr. Kristen Robinson, and she'll be introducing our new full-time director for the Police Academy and Training Program.
It is my pleasure tonight to welcome Jack Amoroso officially to the COS management staff. Jack is a graduate of the COS Police Academy. He worked for Hanford Police Department. He worked in various capacities from Deputy Sheriff, Sergeant, and Commander for Kings County Sheriff's Office from 1988 to 2009. And then he retired. And then he came out of retirement to start the police department in Avenel, where he served as chief. He served in that capacity to 2015. Over the years, Jack has served in numerous capacities for the COS Police Academy, including Extended Academy Coordinator, Instructor, SCT, which is State Training Correction, that's on the jail side of the house for Advanced Officer, and Corps Academy. And then most recently, he served as the interim co-director for the Police Academy for almost a year. So we really appreciate all that he's done for COS, and now are happy to welcome him to the management team in an official capacity.
He didn't say anything about speaking. Truly, in 1986 was the first time I walked in here as an instructor, and I've always thought the academy was something special. There literally is one job I would come out of retirement for. I was pretty good at sitting on my butt and stuff for a police retirement, but this is just something special. And when the opportunity arose, I cannot tell you how appreciative I am. I can assure you the academy will move forward. Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to add a quick comment. First of all, welcome to all of you who have been introduced this evening, but in particular to comment on Jack Amoroso's appointment to the Police Academy. You can see the passion and the emotion that he brings to the assignment. It's a true success story, though, for Kristen and I to be at the place we are now and the college in the relationship with Jack Amoroso and with the Law Enforcement Advisory Board for our Kings Tulare Police Advisory Academy. It wasn't more than a couple of years ago where we were at a little bit of a loggerhead over how to deal with the growth on the campus and how to manage the classrooms and the facilities. And what a wonderful opportunity it was for us to work through very difficult and emotionally charged issues, a real sense of ownership and pride colliding both on the part of us as educators and Jack and their group as law enforcement professionals, but with some great counsel out of some veterans in the Hanford area and with some real commitment to working together. That group of chiefs and Dr. Robinson and myself, forced ourselves to sit down and work through these issues. And from that analysis came the new education building in Hanford, the plan for the growth and the expansion. It was just the push we needed to start to envision the expansion of the Hanford Educational Center. And now to come full circle and have someone who is kind of, leading the argument with the college, to be leading the success of the college is a testimony to Kristen's patience, Jack's professionalism, and the commitment that everybody has to our law enforcement academy over there. So it's a nice night tonight to be able to welcome you here, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good, congratulations. I agree with what Stan said, and a lot has been accomplished, and I think a lot's going to happen. Okay. Next up on our agenda is the various reports. And first up is Academic Senate, and I don't believe we are going to have a report today. Costa report, Mr. Hurst.
Thank you. I just wanted to, this is my last chance, and so I wanted to take a quick minute to thank you, Stan, for your service to the college and also for your integrity, your leadership. While I think we can all say we've all contributed to the changes that brought COS back from the brink, one person led us. And instead of forcing something on us, he had the foresight to facilitate, I think, the best minds of the college to develop a shared vision. And I think this is real leadership, frankly. And we just finished negotiations. We have a ratification vote I'm confident of, planned for next week. And as we all know, in our history, negotiations have always had the opportunity to be tense and difficult. But markedly over the last 3 years, the atmosphere has improved extraordinarily. And I felt this year for the first time in many years that we could just talk about things from the standpoint of having shared interests rather than opposing positions. And I attribute that in part to all of the negotiating team and the board, but also to, in no small share, to Stan's leadership. So I'm not one to go on and on, but let me just say, Stan, you will leave us with many advantages, including a fiscally sound college and an outstanding leadership team. But none of these legacies, and we've talked about this, will be as important to me as your simple willingness to treat me personally with respect, listen to my point of view. Again, I think this is a hallmark of real leadership, and I thank you, and we will miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Well said.
We certainly appreciate those comments, and thank you for being here when I know school is out and others. But anyway, I appreciate those comments very much. All right, next up is CSEA report, and Mr. Lamar is present and accounted for.
He is, I think. I too, CSEA, wanted to thank Stan for coming on board and steering us. He's been great to work with in his last official board meeting, and I personally wanted to thank him because he's become a friend and he's been great to work with, so thank you, Stan. And CSEA, with the ratification of Costa, is anxiously awaiting this Wednesday as we start negotiations. So, here we go.
There we go. Thank you.
It's all right.
Sit down.
Okay, I don't see Dr. Erickson here, so I'm anticipating no COSAFA report today. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, consent calendar is next. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the Board of Trustees or any person in the audience and considered as a separate agenda item. So with that, are there any items on the consent calendar which need to be addressed separately?
Nope.
None? If none, then I would entertain a motion for the approval of the consent calendar.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of consent calendar, items 1 through 11. Is there any additional questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, action items. Item 12, curriculum, modified, deleted, and new. Dr. Lucerna.
Okay, we have the curriculum report in front of you, and the recommendation is that the board approve this. This has already been approved by the curriculum committee and the academic senate. On page 1, we have some new courses and programs, and so we have a new food safety management course, along with 2 welding courses, and we have a new associate in arts for transfer in social justice studies, focusing on Chicano studies. On page 2, we have modifications to programs, and all of these are 2-year or 5-year reviews, and so they're just coming up to make sure that we have the most recent information. And did I go the wrong? And the last page, I went the wrong way, is also a modification to a program that's up for a regular review. So those are the courses and programs in front of you today, and it's recommended that the board approve these.
Okay,
So moved.
Second.
we have a motion and a second for approval of the curriculum report. Is there any additional questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, now we're going to get the accreditation report.
Yes, and so we have before you the institutional self-evaluation report. This is it printed. We're not supposed to print it, but it's 420 pages. So I'm sure that you guys want to go through this in
I'm
detail.
glad you didn't put that in our binder.
I know, no, didn't make the binder. So this report is required to be submitted to the ACCJC 60 days before our site visit, which is October 1st through 4th. And so this report I presented last meeting, all of the groups that have reviewed the report and everybody that has given feedback and input on the report. So it is before you today for approval. And Superintendent Carasosa asked me to be brief on this because you guys have seen it. There's been drafts out there. So I thought I'd just go over a few pages. So let's start on page 1. Just kidding. I thought I would try to add some humor. I didn't know if the joke would go over, but I can pass it around.
They went like this.
Nothing's
Jennifer.
funny.
Well, you just scared us so bad.
This has been, this has been a lot of work. We started over 2 years ago. It is really, so many people have contributed to this. Faculty, staff, administrators, students. So it's been, and I will tell one more joke. My son was in my office a couple days ago, and this was sitting on my desk. I'm like, oh, we were talking about it, and my assistant Conti was in the office, and we were talking about it, and he says, oh, I said, yeah, this is a report. Guess who put it together? Guess who was in charge of it? He goes, my son looks at my assistant, Conti, and he says, oh, Conti, right? And I'm like, yes, Conti put it together. She wrote it, she put it together. But she did have a big part of it. We've had an evidence team that has been working hard, and just absolutely everybody in this room contributed to this report, and most people across campus. So I think when you read through it, it feels like where we started 6 years ago to today, it's like a completely different feel. You read through it, and we're just so proud of so many of the things that we did, even to the point where there's several sections in here where we have to say we meet the standard, but we actually have said we exceed the standard. And it's in all of the areas that our faculty, our staff, our board, our president, our administration have worked so hard on. So we're really, really proud of it. And I think the board should approve this tonight.
So moved, so moved.
Before I start reading from page 1, otherwise I'm going to read.
Have you actually read the whole thing yourself?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I have. But
I'm sure you
More
have.
than once,
Of course, there's a whole different approach today at the college as far as participation and caring about doctors and so on. So I think I know the answer, but one of the problems with accreditations reports that I've read or read at from other institutions, this is you have all these various sections that were obviously written by somebody that disagreed with everybody else. Are you really satisfied with the continuity through it?
Yeah, I am. We had numerous people contributing from a team, and we looked at it as a team. We had a writing team that went through each section and made sure there was continuity, and that made sure that the voice sounded the same, and where there were areas that it didn't, we changed it. Then our accreditation work group, which is about 12 people, took it, and they took each section and reread it again. They read the whole report, gave feedback. We had an editor who also took a look at all of that, and I think the feedback that I've heard most from everybody is that it tells our story, it tells the story well, and it flows well. So I think that kind of sums that up. But yeah, it really does. It flows, and it's in one voice, and it's not complaining about things or asking about things. We're honest in areas that we need to improve, and we're honest in areas where we think we excel. So I think that tells the story.
Jennifer, I have a question. In terms of like other colleges and that report, is there a guideline on, in terms of just content, how long, how short? Do they tell you, and is it, I know it's not a template, because I mean, it is of some sort, but in terms of being long or short, does it have to do with where the college is, or like because we were on show cause, does it have to be longer? Where
So-
are we compared to other colleges in that report and the length of it?
In looking at other colleges, and we looked, that first step that we did was look at other colleges' reports, and they vary many of us who have been on site visit teams, they vary from, probably the shortest I've seen is 300 pages, and the longest is 700 pages.
Okay.
So they're pretty much all over there. The ACCJC would prefer that these were about 100 to 150 pages, but while the standards are so repetitive, and you have to be able to prove that you're doing these things, there's not a way to make this shorter. And we're pretty concise in here where we could be.
Wow.
I think that the current leadership at the ACCJC is very motivated to create a template, and I believe I'm confident by the next time we come forward that there will be a template that makes it much easier. But as of now, they're just not there yet. The other type of report that we have to submit is called a substantive change report, and that can be this big. Ask Dr. Robinson, she's had to write them before. They can be this thick. They're almost as much as this. And they've already created a template for that. So that is extremely streamlined, and it's much easier. So they did that with the annual report that we have to do. So I'm confident in the future we will be able to submit something that's 150 pages, but right now I think we're probably shorter than most, because most tend to put more, but we used good models of shorter reports and tried to be as concise as we could.
Got it. Thank you. Good explanation. You
You have a
moved?
motion.
Seconded.
There you go.
All right, we do have a motion and a second for the approval of the Institutional Self-Evaluation Report, otherwise known as ICER, for 2018. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Zumwalt?
I want you, if you would please, to thank the people that work on that for the board. I don't know if other board members have ever served on a site visit before at other colleges. I have. And when you read those things, and it's not too hard to tell there's something wrong, even though you don't know what it is, because there's no flow. And how your team prepares that is most of what makes easy sledding when they get here. And I appreciate that. And the hard work you and all the people that work with you on that is why. And I'm looking forward to almost to real easy questions for the people that come. So thank you, and please thank them for the board.
Thank you. And I'm going on vacation in 2 days, and having this done feels so good. But it's also looking into the visit. just not worried about it because I'm so confident about where we are and the work that we've done, and that they're going to be able to see that in this report. And I also want to thank the board for your trust in allowing us to do this, and for your leadership, having been through what we went through 6 years ago. You guys have been fabulous, supportive and trusting, and also guiding, and so I really appreciate that. And our accreditation work group was just fabulous to work with, as was my writing team. They were really great. So the thanks back, and I will share that message with everyone.
Please do.
And of course, to echo everyone else's words, Stan's leadership.
We're just really fortunate that we didn't have to run for reelection right at that time.
Yeah.
We'd have been booted off. So, very fortunate.
Just a couple quick comments, consistent with what everybody has said. I think the biggest difference that I've been able to observe from the 2012 report that Dr. Lacerna and I actually inherited, it was already done, to what we're adopting tonight, is not only the process and the participatory engagement this time versus last time, but the last institutional self-evaluation report, chapter by chapter, was an opportunity for the different factions in the college to complain about issues that they wanted outsiders to see as a way to try to leverage somebody else from the outside to help us get something we wanted inside. This is now 180 degrees different than that. This is really about a self-assessment of who we are and sharing our best self with the people who are here to come. And one of the areas, I want you guys to be proud of this, one of the standards where we have some of the most areas where we exceed what the standard is in standard number 4, which deals with the board and the board's relationship with the district, the board's leadership, the policy and decision-making processes, the governance and the structures. Those are the areas where now, as we were reviewing it the other day, we thought, gosh, in that one standard, in that one area, number 4, we have 3 or 4 areas where we far exceed what the minimum standard is. So we expect some commendations in those areas, and that goes to what Jennifer shared with you guys, that you got training, you held us accountable, but you put trust in us, and we appreciated that. We felt that confidence, and I think that was the motivation for us to do the good work. So thank you for that.
Thanks.
All right, very good.
Congratulations.
Have a nice vacation.
Yeah, have a great vacation. Don't take that report with you. You may want to, but don't take it.
All right, item number 14 is revised board policies, 1100 and BP 6540.
Second reading, you can see them. Minimal changes recommended in order for the labels and names to be accurate. Unless there are any questions, our recommendation would be that the board waive this second reading and take action to approve.
Move to waive and approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second for waive of reading and approval of board policies 1100 and 6540. Is there any additional questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor, this is a resolution? No, it's not, I'm sorry. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed, motion carries. So approval is there. Item 15, approval of appointments of educational and classified administrators, and this is a resolution 2018-16.
At COS, our administrators are employed either through an express written employment agreement, or they're employed through what we refer to as an appointment. Our vice presidents and our presidents are given a annual or a biannual contract, but everyone else that's a manager, the board has been appointing for a year term. And that term generally starts July 1st and it ends on June 30th. Of course, if someone is hired as a manager after July 1st, their appointment begins the day they're employed and extends all the way through June 30th. At this time, I'm bringing to the board a list of all of our managers and asking that the board approve resolution 2018-16 and appointing the named administrators to a one-year appointment.
All right, do we have, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of Resolution 2018-16. And so with that, Megan, would you please poll the board?
Trustee Zumwalt.
Aye.
Trustee Sherman.
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye. Resolution 2018-16 is unanimously adopted. Item 16, approval of employment agreement, Vice President of Student Services.
At our last board meeting, the board formally approved of the hiring of our new Vice President of Student Services, Jessica Morrison. In the meantime, we've been able to draft a employment agreement for Ms. Morrison. And this employment agreement virtually mirrors the other VPs on campus, with the exception of salary. All the other terms and conditions are consistent with our Vice President of Academic Services, as well as our Vice President of Administrative Services. At this time, I would ask that the board formally approve of the employment agreement reached between the district and Jessica Morrison.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of employment agreement with Jessica Morrison, Vice President of Student Services. Are there any additional questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we are moving on to item 17, which is the tentative budget for the year July 1, 18 through June 30, 19. Tentative budget.
Okay, good
All
evening,
right, here
board
we go.
members. I feel like I'm just going to bring a sleeping bag and move up here for a while tonight, but hopefully we'll go quickly. I have a few items to present to you. So the budget for 18-19, a tentative budget, is presented to you tonight. We have a budget book. We also have the PowerPoint here. And our overall budget this year, we are budgeting tentatively based on the current funding formula as we know it. No new funding formula, because as we developed this, there really wasn't anything other than a Senate and Assembly that said we don't agree with the governor's proposal. So last Friday, we found out there may be new news, and I'll mention some of that. But our overall unrestricted general budget is $61,700,000. So we'll talk about the items that are of note that we have based this on, our assumptions. Again, the existing funding formula, not may revise. It includes a 2.71% COLA, which is almost $1.7 million per year for COS. It does include reaching mid-sized college funding level. It looks very secure. We've reached that. That brings an extra $1.2 million. Even if we go to a new funding formula, in all of the scenarios we've seen, that gets built into the base. So that funding is secure. It's built on 10,100 FTS, and throughout this budget presentation and a couple other items I have tonight, you're going to see that number a lot, both as we close out the prior year, start the next year. Just want to let you know that that really was a good number about 3 weeks ago, but just as we've closed our spring semester, our actual hours of attendance have come in. I think we're going to end up the year over 10,200. And then we shift our 88 FTS in, so somewhere between 10.2, 10.3 as we close out our year. But the budget is built on 10,100. It assumes zero growth right now for 18-19. 1% access funding or growth was in the governor's budget, but we're assuming zero. That's how we've built our budgets the last few years, to be conservative, not assume we're going to grow, and then have to make cuts if we don't. It does include the growth and access funds, however, that we know we've achieved here in 17-18, and that equates to almost 1.6 million. So that's the 10,100 over what we adopted, about 312 in growth. And this document, right or wrong, includes plant maintenance and instructional support one-time funding of almost 1.15 million. We found out on Friday that was greatly slashed, but it's just kind of a a shell movement of one-time dollars from here
You found out with
to there.
Brittany what?
Slashed or cut, yes, sorry. Much lower, it works out to 93,000 for scheduled maintenance and 93,000 for instructional equipment. I'm not terribly concerned because we have some one-time dollars that we can talk about. In fact, we'll talk a little later with another board agenda item. But the governor and the groups that conferred to reach a final agreement looked like they wanted to take those one-time dollars that are identified here, seeing if my pointer works. Anyway, that 574,000 for each, and use those for other priorities. So it is built into this budget, though, that you see tonight. This is a little tenuous, and I think our new president, Brent Calvin May, we were trying to find out information right now, but we are not assuming that the basic skills building will be funded. It was not part of the governor's May revise. We had hoped that the legislation might put it through, but we're having trouble understanding what was presented. So we're still kind of in the middle on that one.
So we're one of the 4 that didn't get it?
Yes, yes. Although it's hard, 4 that were included in that 25 may have been pulled back as well. It was a little hard to understand. Brent, you didn't get any additional information? Yeah, yeah. So we're trying to research that right now.
And oddly, the actual budget looks like it's gonna have several direct projects funded through the budget.
Yes.
Outside of.
Construction projects and the
Because that
normal.
was sitting with the other superintendents and presidents in the state. There's
Yeah.
indirect
Yeah.
that happened in the last couple of weeks, so.
Yeah. So we are still hopeful. We might get funding here in 18-19. We'll know a little more in just a week or so. But if not, maybe 19-20 or beyond. So we have not established a budget in our tentative budget. We did complete our move, or we're in the middle of it, moving to the Tulare Downtown Annex, though, to be prepared for when those funds come and to start the construction there. Let's see, PERS and STRS increased costs. We've talked about these a lot, but just to reiterate, we did already fund currently the 18-19 increased costs. They were budgeted a year in advance of $788,000. 19-20, we have $826,000. They're budgeted a year in advance. They're included in this budget. 2021, $624,000 are budgeted 2 years in advance, and they're included in this budget. So we're in a good position. I erred in some math right here, but I will say that we have a remaining 4 years yet to be funded. It actually totals $367,000. I had a mistake there. I missed 21, 22. But you can still tell $367,000 to reach what is currently the completion of these step increases is really a good place to be. And the annual increases may vary. That 367 may change as actuarial calculations occur or markets fluctuate. But we're in a good place. So I have a spreadsheet I'll show you.
Okay, Christine, can you
Yeah.
go back to that slide
Yeah.
just to make sure I'm clear?
Mhm.
So I'm clear with you on the 19-20, 826,000.
Mhm.
That's in the 18-19 budget.
Yeah.
And the 2021 is 624, are budgeted 2 years in advance and are included. So those are also included in the 18-19
Yes,
budget.
yeah.
And so then that takes us to 21-22.
Mhm.
Is that right? The remaining 4. So when you say the remaining 4 years, you're referring to 21-22 and
Yeah.
forward?
I'm going to show you a slide. Sorry it's so small, but if you can see, that's 18-19, and that's the 788,000 that we've already budgeted for. That 18-19,
Okay.
but 19-20 we have budgeted for in this
Right,
tentative.
right.
2021 we've budgeted for.
There's the
And then there's the
624.
remaining
Oh, the remaining 4
367.
years in total are only 624.
No, they're actually 367.
Yeah.
It's, sorry, you probably
Oh,
can't see,
it's the
164.
The 160, the 105,
Yeah.
and.
76.
Okay, and that's actually in the hard copy here that we have.
That
Oh, it's in
particular
your
slide
slide.
may not be, but it's
Yeah.
in the PowerPoint.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
It's right
oh,
there.
okay, so we have this slide here.
It's
yeah.
in your slide.
It's
All
in,
right,
it's
so,
in the
So
PowerPoint presentation.
the 366, we'll deal with it starting, you know, in the 1920 budget, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
we're-
unless we choose to
yeah.
deal with it earlier, but we're in a good
Not
place.
necessarily all of
Yeah.
it, but whatever
Mhm.
we decide to do. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, sorry about that.
That's okay, and I'm sorry the print is so small. This budget does include restricted programs, as always, but Guided Pathways is similar to last year, through almost 350,000. College Promise, you'll recall, that we have adopted a local College Promise reimbursement plan, and that was 368,000. It does look like it's going to be funded. There are a few more hoops that we have to jump through to actually get those dollars, but that's it here in the tentative budget. Student Success and Support is slightly lower than prior year, but they're ready for that, and that budget is going to work well. Student Equity, same as prior year. Strong Workforce, you'll see a $700,000 increase in their budget. It's restricted, but that's primarily carryover from year 2. We're on year 3 now. And just so you know, that really generates now, it's about $650,000 regionally and $1.26 million locally. Add those dollars, that's what's coming to us. And that's up from about 500,000 and $1 million. So it's a well-funded program, and it's bringing a lot to our district. That was the PERS and STRS that we talked about. But again, you can see STRS is now we're fully funded according to what they've said we'll have to increase. PERS is the one that has these 4 out years that we have not funded. STRS tops out right now at a 19.10% employer rate. PERS marches up to 26%. So the PERS side is, well, it's all expensive. And that's a total of, again, $4.525 million that we will have funded when this is all complete annually of increased costs. This is just to show you how we track our enrollment management. And you'll recall this number right here, 10,000, almost 200, that when I prepared this as of June 5th, that was our calculation. And then we swing 88 in that we shifted from the prior year. So we may be reporting 10,286. The numbers that are italicized, we don't know for sure what summer 2018 will bring. And this little number, 493, is the one that I'm still finalizing with our tech department on those counts. So that's how we track our FTES and all these different components of how it's generated, but really a good, strong year for COS. And looking at how that compares to prior years, you can see that 10,286 with a question mark, because we're not done yet with summer. The state is saying they'll fund us for 10,089. Many places I've rounded that up to 10,100. That's all they've promised us at this point in time, but there's a very, I put a plus, that they may fund us for more if we're still one of those growing districts and all the other districts are declining, or many of them. And then 18-19, you take away that 88 we shifted, it could be 10,200. That's what I put here as an estimate. The funded growth might be 10,190, but we've built the budget on 10,100 because that's where we were at that point in spring. Okay, and then again, as we look to our fiscal solvency.
Christine?
Oh, yeah.
Is our FTES, are we at an all-time high, or was it higher?
It was
prior
higher,
to,
in 09, 10, and 10, 11, we were at
But we weren't funded.
10,600, 10,500.
Right.
But we were doing a lot of shifting.
But I mean, prior to the oldest year on there, we were never higher than this.
I don't think we ever were,
Yeah.
at least not that I've heard, yeah.
My recollection was over 10,000s were a manipulation, really.
Yeah.
A lot.
Remember we went through
Yeah.
the.
Summer school,
And we
pulling
weren't
one
getting
year
paid.
out.
The big spikes.
Grow,
We didn't get paid for it, so.
grow, shrink, and all the havoc that raised. We got more money for it and it made a mess. So,
Well, and we got more money because we reached 10,000, we reached the 10,000 threshold for midsize, but we also lost a lot of money having to educate about 2,000 more FTS than we were getting paid for on our base,
right.
you know, midsize aside. So when we analyzed that, we're not sure that that was financially beneficial.
We bottomed out at
Right.
8,200.
Yeah.
So, good growth.
That was bad.
They're still analyzing.
We're reminiscing about those
Going-
bad years.
Going back to that interim
It's always good to
year,
just look for a
man.
minute.
Yeah.
Good years, yeah.
So fiscal solvency projections, you'll see on the next slide and in our budget book that we're adopting, we're actually going out 2 more years besides this 18-19. But cost of step and column is already built in, and just for information not built into the tentative budget, knowing what a cost of 1% is, it's about $420,000 for our unrestricted side of the general fund, or a little over $500,000 for the total general fund. And our fiscal solvency projections as far as revenues, I won't read through all this, but all the assumptions I just mentioned add up to about 4.5 million of new funds here in 18-19. And for 19-20, we're just assuming a 1% COLA, 0 growth, and that's 617,000. And for 2021, assume the same thing, you get a little bump. That number, I should have said new revenues for 2021. I got ahead of myself there. But you take those and, well, actually I have one more slide, just so you would know what are the new expenditures that are built into the tentative that maybe weren't in our prior budgets. We did authorize 211,000 in base budget augmentations that we felt were mandated or compliance oriented. We had another 500,000 plus that were base budget augmentations, and that includes new management and classified staffing. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And it included our 15 new faculty, the cost there, and then the pre-funding of PERS and STIRS for those 2 years. So those are built in, and then you take all that and put it on a spreadsheet really to go 2 years out and make sure that you're still fiscally solvent. So you can see that this budget before you, this tentative budget, assumes a surplus of almost 3.2 million. So it's a healthy surplus. Revenues, the state of 61.7 million, local and federal 3.1, and so you've got almost 65 million in revenues and about 61.7 million in expenditures, and that's what's in the tentative budget. Taking those assumptions and looking out a couple years, add step and column, add some of those basic increases. We added 200,000 next year, but 100 the following year. 100 usually is what we've done. We had a little bump up this year. Retirees, this is low, but it's kind of proportional. We're assuming 3 retirees, 5 new faculty. Could be double that on both sides. And then the cost of PERS and STIRS for the next 2 years, build those in, continuing to be 2 years ahead. And we still have healthy surpluses. So that's a good place to be. We like to present that for the board. And the next few slides, I'm really not going to read through, but I wanted you as board members to know that we in Fiscal Services, after the whole cycle has been completed with resource allocations, we like to kind of try and document how do these link to our district goals, our objectives, and even our district missions. So we've taken some of those new things that we've hired and filled them in. These are just a few of the items that tie to our mission pretty directly, such as our new faculty and discretionary budgets for academic services. How do we increase student enrollment? We have all these items, even a small increase in scholarship software funds. That's going to increase student enrollment. Let's see, we do goal 2, the rate at which students complete degrees, certificates, and transfers, and all these things help. Even we're looking at a new data steward, utility costs for that downtown annex, and the additional items and the additional students that we can serve down there. So strategically tailoring and implementing academic programs and student services that match the unique needs. And so many of these things are listed 2 or 3 times, but we try and tie them, such as funding the LRC Saturday program, including writing center aides, increase in an ESL staffing budget, things like that. And then goal 4 is kind of our overall operations and effectiveness. And we have, you might find this interesting, a 0.6, a little more than a half-time purchasing and business support manager we're going to try and hire. That's primarily out of the new revenues that we have on our rental properties that we've taken on. We have infrastructure and security tech manager, different things such as fiscal services budgets, annual fees and costs. but those are all tying into engaging in best practices and staff development to sustain effective operational systems. I could have gone deeper. I tried not to, but for instance, if you go down to the objectives, a lot of those tie. Like our new data steward directly ties to data-driven decision-making. So that was a quick attempt to tie to link. Next, we have our categorical programs. You can just see listed here what we earned in 17-18, what we're budgeting in the tentative budget for 18-19. Biggest change being an increase there in strong workforce of 700,000, and then a slight decrease in student success from 3.1 to 2. It was about 150,000 less. Also, the new college promise there at the bottom. And I'm going kind of fast. Now, you have seen all our other budgets in a different format in our prior, in fact, I think it's the old actual budget book, but we tried to put it a little more succinctly on a spreadsheet here. This first slide shows our farm budgets, which are ag instructional funds. We know without a doubt they are not here to make a profit. So you see some deficits here in the net surplus deficit. Really, they're just instructional programs that happen to earn a little revenue. So we've listed the expenses, the revenue, the deficit there, and those total to almost 150,000. We do supplement that, kind of backfill it with a little bit of restricted lottery funds. On the other side, we have our farm that we try and earn some funds to offset that. And the farm has a decent surplus. Some of this may change, but this is just the budget for next year. And it shows local revenue and the net surplus or deficit. Right now, the almonds show an $80,000 deficit. Farm overhead, of course, doesn't have any matching revenue. My fiscal folks have said almond expense will be capitalized at year end, which gives authority to purchase. I think that means that we're going to credit the expense and debit the asset, which means we won't have that expense at the end of the year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Until the almonds start producing.
Okay, so anyway, but that does, for now, we have a $93,000, let me make sure I have this, deficit, mostly because of the almonds and the farm overhead. Total, oh, I'm sorry, farm funds, 56,000 profit. When you combine it with the instructional funds, then, whoops, then you have the $93,000 deficit. So I hope that all made sense. And then we have all our other funds, and usually very minimal revenues and expenditures in some of the funds that are just there, like the Hispanic Serving Institute, Linwood Reserve. Capital projects, however, you'll see kind of placeholder expenditures that we've listed that you'll see a little later with some funds that we're going to move to capital projects or we're proposing. And they do have revenue from the state. Unfortunately, that includes that $574,000 that we thought was coming in for scheduled maintenance. So some of this will change by final budget. And then we have all our general obligation bonds. Basically, revenues are budgeted to match the expenditures, and the county office tells us how to budget those. So just a note as we close our books, thanks for bearing with me, but we do anticipate that additional funds are going to fall. This year especially, I wanted to, I'm going to get into another board agenda item, but when we generated the extra growth plus the mid-sized college funds, we know that, and we're going to budget to spend it next year as we finalize our budget. But for this year, it comes in as one-time dollars. So we're proposing to leave $1 million of that in the general fund. If we end up with 200 more FTS, that might bring in an additional $1 million, because you saw the 10,100 could reach 10,300. So those are dollars that may fall. We don't know. Summer school will tell. And then there's just portions of general fund dollars, that budgets that go unspent every year. So all that to say, we think there could be about $2.5 million unspent, which we are assuming would start next year with almost a 30% fund balance. So wanted you folks to know about that. And are there comments, questions?
Amen.
Well, I think one of the things to make sure we at least clarify for people like Dave and Steve and others who are sitting is that when we pre-fund those PERS and STIRS obligations, we're conditioning the budget a year or two before those ongoing resources are necessary, but we're lining them up in there to make sure that they're in place. So until they kick into actually needing to be an expenditure, they drop at the end of each year as a one-time dollar. So Yeah, our goal isn't to have a 30+% reserve. It's nice to be
Conditioning.
there right now. But as Christine will show you later on in the agenda, we're proposing that we take some of those one-time funds that have dropped, transfer them into a capital projects budget. Capital projects is big. It's enough, it's got broad enough for us to do a variety of things with it there. But also during the budget year, it's a place where we can pull money back over if we need to, so that it doesn't sit in that unrestricted reserve and push your reserve up over 30+%. Because one way or another, we should be spending some of those dollars. We shouldn't be sitting on them in a reserve necessarily when we've got a substantial reserve already. So we're gonna give you a choice there, an option.
A little bit different take. First place, I think going much past 30% is not necessary.
Right.
But I've been through a few cycles around here where you cut project, you didn't hire anybody, you laid people off,
Shut down
students
summer
couldn't
school.
get classes. That's the time to spend the reserve. That's what it's really for, so you don't have to do that.
Exactly.
But how much is enough?
Right.
And I'm guessing 30% certainly.
Pretty good, yeah.
So that's here for your approval. Unless there's other questions.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the 2018-19 tentative budget. Are there any additional questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Tentative budget is approved.
Thank you.
All right, Christine, thank you for that, and you're up on the next item as well. Item 18, transfer funds to other post-retirement benefits, OPEB, and this is a resolution.
Yeah, I have, actually, I think I'm bringing about 5 resolutions to you, but this is the first, and you will recall that at a rather informal board-approved plan at a board retreat was to try and get our other post-employment benefits fund fully funded. And so as a result of that, we moved in $1 million, May of 16, from our one-time mandate cost reimbursements. We moved in $553,000 then to start on this plan to fully fund at the end of last year when we had extra funds. Now we find ourselves at the end of this year. Well, add to that though, in January, we moved in $480,000 when we closed our retiree health insurance fund that had been sitting there for about 9 years. So this would stay on that path of moving $553,000 in at the end of the year when we deem that there's enough unspent dollars in our unrestricted general fund. And that's what the resolution requests. You might want to note that we have a liability of 9.9 or almost 10 million, but our current trust balance, this is April 30th, was almost 9 million. Wow. So moving this in leaves us with a little over 400,000 left.
We're right there. We're right there.
Christine, what's the significance, maybe you alluded to that and I missed it, the significance of such an odd amount, the 553?
Oh, yeah, it is an odd amount. Back when we adopted it, and again, it wasn't, I don't think it was formal action, but it was a plan that you as a board, I don't know if it was a formal approval, it was a board?
It was a board priority and it was an action item.
Yes, thank you. Anyway, I calculated a 5-year payoff, and it was $553,000 a year. In this case, it'll be done in about 3, so.
Okay.
I move we approve resolution 2018-11.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of resolution 2018-11. Megan, would you please poll the board?
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Zumwalt?
Aye.
Trustee Aniz?
Aye. Resolution 2018-11 is approved unanimously. Okay.
Okay.
Looks like you have everything else
The
on
rest
the
of
agenda.
I know. That's why I was
Take
going to bring
us
my
home.
sleeping bag.
All right. Item 19, education
Okay.
protection account requirements for the 18-19 fiscal year. And this is also, wow, all these are almost all resolutions.
They're almost all
Annual-
resolutions.
Yeah, annual,
All right.
annual action
Yeah,
items.
so this is the
30.
education protection account. You've seen it every year since 2012, when Prop 30 was passed. And the governor at that time increased sales tax by 0.25%, and the 4 highest income tax brackets were created up to 13.3%. And since then, I think in 2016, the sales tax went away, but the higher tax brackets have remained. And so what we're required to do is adopt a resolution stating how we're going to spend those funds. And the very last page attached as an exhibit to that resolution basically states that we're going to spend the $8.013 million received on instructional salaries and benefits, which we've done each year. And I don't know if there's any other questions. It's just become kind of a routine action. We cannot spend it on administrative salaries or administrative costs. That's in legislation. We also publish this on our website, so.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of Resolution 2018-12. Megan, would you please poll the board on this resolution?
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Zumwalt?
Aye.
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Amick?
Aye. Resolution 2018-12 is unanimously approved as well. Agenda item 20 is an interfund district loan, and that's Resolution 2018-13.
Yes, and I think you're probably pretty familiar with this. I'm not sure how much this is needed, but we feel like it's a good business practice to set this up at the beginning of each year so that if for any reason we needed extra funds, that we could borrow from our 4 other funds that hold extra dollars. And this would be you as a board authorizing interfund loans to cover any temporary cash shortages that would occur. We really don't foresee that occurring, but it's kind of a routine action we take at the beginning of each fiscal year.
So move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of Resolution 2018-13. Megan, would you please poll the board once again?
Trustee Zumwalt?
Aye.
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Amick?
Aye. Resolution 2018-13 is unanimously adopted. Item 21, transfer of funds to capital projects, and this is Resolution 14.
Yeah, and this one might take a little more explanation because it's a little bit unique this year. But there are a number of items that I'm here and we are requesting your approval to transfer funds to capital projects. And I want you to think of it as 3 pots of money because there's actually 3 bolded sections in here. And the first section looks at our unspent funds from our pre-funding of PERS and STRS and the other various unspent accounts, hundreds, maybe 1,000 of them that just go unspent every year. So again, there's going to be 3 pots we look at. And the first part of that, we already approved $553,000 going to OPEB, but these would be items that would go to capital projects. And you might recall we've been doing $100,000 a year for a 5-year plan for artificial turf replacement, so that's included here. There's $101,000. We set aside some funds from the pre-funding of PERS and STRS to do some office remodels for faculty this year. We had a strong contingency for that, and they were under budget. So there's extra funds there that we're requesting to be moved for the renovation of the Visalia Cafe. They're currently in the facilities budget. And then $1 million is broken out here, $300,000 to add air conditioning to Potwisha. These items were vetted through Budget Committee. They were also presented to District Governance Senate. And I remember when I presented this one to District Governance Senate, they all just rolled their eyes like saying, I guess we needed AC in there 20 years ago, but it was about time, they said. So we've planned on that. It would help to move the funds there. And then $700,000, this is kind of a new one. Just a little explanation. In 2021, our phone system goes to end of life. So that's only a small part of what we're proposing right now. Right now, we're proposing a 3-year funding plan by about 2020 to upgrade and our technology infrastructure and cabling. It also includes our phone system. But Glenn is here, and I'm going to do my best to describe it. Basically, We generally, in all our 40-year-old buildings, most of them that have not been renovated, have one cable coming through the walls. I'm gonna say it's a Cat 1 or Cat 2, I'm just making that up, I don't know. But Glenn tells me we need four cables for about a Cat 6. And a 4 allows you one cable for the computer, one for the printer, one for a wireless access, one for a phone, or whatever else you may need, as he says. Not every office has all those things. And so we're just starting that process now and realizing how extremely expensive this is gonna be. It's really for us to come up to date with our infrastructure for technology. And it is primarily at this campus, I think, is there any touching the other 2 campuses, or are they new enough? Yeah, yeah. So that is presented here tonight. That was also voted on by our budget committee. The 2.1 million is just an estimate. We are just starting now to look at the costs and funding, and that cost may go up, but it's a really good start if we can start to fund that.
So is there gonna be then like a 5-10-year plan and prioritizing which buildings need it the most first, or is the plan to do a big project all at one time?
We basically have a plan in place, and that's included in this estimate here.
Okay.
Of going through these old buildings and retrofitting them.
Okay.
But it's getting the multi-year funding accumulated, Lori, and then doing it all at once.
Got it, okay, okay. So it is.
Because the systems have to be able to talk to each other. You can't have old stuff in one
Oh, yeah,
building.
so once
and
you do the cabling, it'll be
you're-
done throughout the campus at one time. It's a
Yeah.
one-shot deal. Got it.
Yeah.
Understood.
And
Makes
it'll
sense.
bring Visalia up to the standard where Tulare and Hanford are.
Yes.
Because they're new.
Yes.
When are you doing the work?
We're about 3 years out.
Yeah,
you
and
were
we
that far out,
may
right?
be able to start buildings at a time. And that may allow us to, I mean, we talked actually about starting Cahuilla maybe this next year, if this is approved, was that? Yeah. We're not sure when they get in there. We think we have a good estimate, but do they have to drill through cement, blocks as opposed to just running another cable through? So it would be primarily to start the funding and then to kind of roll it out. It wouldn't be all exactly at one time, but.
Yes,
if
gotta
that
be
makes
done
sense.
continuously anyways.
Mhm.
Is
When you
is
start.
that a bid out project, or is that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It will be.
Is it something that we should try to move up? Sounds like it's pretty critical.
Depending on, I think as we find out what our final budget is, it could very well be something we want to move up. Yeah. It's, we definitely need it done by 2021 if we want phones, or we have cell phones, so it's.
We can approve what they ask for, and if all the pieces fall together, I'm sure they'll come back and ask for
Yeah.
acceleration.
Yeah.
I think we should try to accelerate it if we can.
Yeah. Thank you. And then, so that's the first pot of funds. The second pot is very small, but every year we budget above base funds, or we allocate above base resource allocations. And there just happens to be one that was a little larger that could not be spent by June 30th, and that's $60,000 for an Alertus emergency infrastructure project. And so we're requesting that to be moved to capital projects so we can expend that in 18-19. And then the last section is really this third pot of money, which is our FTES growth and our mid-sized college funds. And FTES growth, do you have the pointer? No, I still have it. You've seen 10,100 everywhere. With budget committee, we were looking a little higher, so this just happens to be 10,113, which at the time we were looking at it, that's what it was. And it created growth of, I think, 325 FTS. So that amounted to 1.641 million, additional 325. Then adding that to the 1.2 million for reaching mid-sized college, you end up with 2.841 million. That's just an estimate of extra funds from growth and mid-sized college that we will have here as we close 17-18. And so what we were trying to think of is what might we want to do with those funds. I'm going to do a little accounting on you right now, but if we just let them all fall to general fund, unrestricted fund balance, then that's great. Our balance, our reserve goes up. That's okay. But next year, let's say we adopt a balanced budget. We have revenues, we have expenditures, and then you have your fund balance. But we're now going to spend these. So we reach back to the fund balance, pull them up into an expenditure budget. Your expenditure budget is now larger. Your revenues are still the same, if that made any sense. You don't have current year revenues to match those expenditures. So it's deficit spending. It's not bad, but when you're deficit spending 3 million, sometimes it gets hard to explain to the county, to the chancellor's office with each of our CCFS. So our proposal is, really with this and the others, let's move these funds out to capital projects now. This 1.841, what we are proposing is moving that to capital projects, possibly for capital project related expenditures, leaving $1 million in the general fund, possibly for instructional equipment and things of that nature. But having said that, we will come back to you in the fall. We'll follow our resource allocation manual, and we'll glean some initial ideas from the board, and we'll go through those same processes we did with one-time mandated costs. And then we'll end up with a final decision by the board of how to spend these funds. And if we need to move some funds, back out to capital projects or back into the general fund, then we can do that. So I hope,
No,
that
makes
made
it,
some.
and it makes it much easier to understand than doing the deficit spending,
I
but saying
know.
that was carryover from last year. I prefer the way, and I think just in general, it's good sound budget to
Yeah.
move it over, set it aside, work on this year's budget. Where are we so that the numbers, so we don't ever say, oh, wait, what happened to that million? We know where it
Yes,
went. It's
yeah.
sitting over here.
We didn't want to do that
Because they'll
tracking
yep.
of a deficit budget in structure, Lori, which is why we're proposing to put this in capital projects. Then you know where it is and you can move it back and forth within one
Yeah,
budget.
and you can just focus on your current year budget
Right.
and make sure you're not missing anything
Yeah.
there.
Right.
Or as far as board members anyways, we can focus on.
And this is transparent, you know where it's at, it's not in the mix of a bigger reserve or fund balance or anything else, so.
So, Megan, if you can scroll down, then in summary, you can see everything we talked about. Again, 3 different pots. This last pot really was $2.841 million from growth and mid-size, leaving $1 million in the general fund, but moving $1.841 million out. So
Right.
we're requesting approval, and it does take a resolution for this transfer.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Move to approve Resolution 2018-14.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of transfer of funds, which is Resolution 2018-14. Would you please poll the board, Megan?
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Zumwalt?
Aye.
Trustee Rivas?
Aye. Resolution 1814 is unanimously adopted. All right, next item on our agenda is item number 22, which is the possibility of refinancing a 2004 COP.
Yeah, and I wish this was a quick slam dunk, but it'll probably take a little explanation. You might recall we have a 2004 COP. It actually funded our student center, which is our student union and our health center. And we currently have 2.445 million still outstanding. Sorry about this, I'll explain in a moment. Anyway, we are paying for almost about 5% average on that financing. And we are proposing to refinance that at a 3.95% refinance with a $20,000, knowing that it'll cost us $20,000 to accomplish this refinancing. The structure would be called a lease-back. The district leases the real property to the financing corp, and then they lease it back pursuant to a lease agreement. It sounds complex, but it's actually what our 2004 certificates of participation are, as well as a 2002 financing that the 2004 actually replaced that. Wanted you to know that if we do this, we cannot prepay for 2 years, but there's no prepayment penalty after 2 years. So if you waited till May 2020, then we could prepay in full. One of the reasons we're not proposing prepayment tonight is, first of all, we just don't know what the final state budget is, and we don't know exactly where we're ending with all of this. And the fact that it's 2.5 million that we're talking about. And then the other fact is this is kind of a complex financing. It includes payments from student fees in it. So if we were to pay it off, I know I would need to take some time to figure out, we've gone through the chancellor's office to approve those student fees. What happens to those student fees when we do pay it off? But we felt like if we did this now, then we don't face the increases in the interest rates that we know are coming. In other words, it was kind of the bird in the hand, and it will save our district $575,000 in interest over the 10-year. It reduces the payment from 16 years to 10 years, which will get it paid off sooner, unless we prepay down the road. And I think that's about it. It is 2.645 million, and with the 20,000, we would be financing 2.665 million. And there's a resolution that we would need you to approve. The terms of the financing are attached, and a shortened amortization schedule. And we have Linda McCauley here to help us.
Question.
Yes.
So we're going from a 16-year to a 10-year payoff.
Mhm.
Are the payments the same?
No, there's a slight increase to the general fund, and that was actually part of what we approved in our base budget augmentations. It increases it to the general fund in order to garner the net savings of $575,000 over the course of
A
the.
lot of your savings is coming from is the fact that you're shortening the term from.
Exactly.
For 6
Exactly.
years,
Mhm.
you're saving a lot for that. So
Yeah.
how much actually are we saving in interest, do you know?
Yeah, the total over the 10-year term is $575,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say 600K.
Yeah. Per year, I can't remember if that, I don't know that we even
Well,
calculated that.
simple math, about 60K,
Yeah.
10 years, 600,000.
But we could prepay it, we could pay it off today if we chose to.
We could, I don't know,
There's no penalty to pay it off today, is that?
today, there's no penalty, but this finance was structured with a requirement that student fees be increased to make payments. So I gotta see what those are.
It's subject to that issue of what would you have to do? Would you have to change the student fees?
Yeah, I don't know if
Because
it's-
that obligation no
Right.
longer exists.
I don't know if it's
And
legal.
we paid it off with something other than the fees.
Right.
So I
Right,
kind
right.
of understand
Okay.
that.
All right.
That's exactly what it is, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Can't tell you how pleased I am, we're talking about manipulating COPs and making them smaller and getting rid of them instead of creating them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it makes
that's a
financial
good
sense
interest rate.
to.
Yep.
Right, I looked
to
at
do it.
I looked at the refinance right now as a bird in the hand. We know that we can do this, we can save on the interest rate, we can capture those savings if in 2 years we have the resources and we want to pay it off in full without the penalty of having to restructure the student senate revenues. We can do that and still recover the $20,000.
Or if interest rates go to 7%, we'll keep it.
Right? I just didn't want to pass on the opportunity to allow you to act on the refi now, as opposed to letting the refi go and hope that we do better in a couple years.
Okay, I move we approve resolution 2018-15.
We have a motion and a second for approval of resolution 2018-15, the refinance of certificate of participation loans. Megan, would you please poll the board?
Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Zumwalt?
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Nunes?
Aye. Resolution 2018-15 is approved. All right, next item on the agenda is the lease agreement for the Tulare downtown building.
Yeah, and the last item that I have to present, yay. So we have been leasing from the McElmoyle, I said that wrong, Family Trust for the last 2 years, as we've been anticipating moving 2 of our IT programs down there from what is now our Buckeye building. Along with that, we've added some electrician training courses at that building. This summer's the big summer that we're moving it down. We had really hoped that we would have secured funding for our basic skills at this point in time, but we needed to either not move down there or pull the trigger on a longer lease. We did 2 one-year leases while we were waiting to find out if this was gonna occur. And this is our first 3-year lease with an option to renew 3 years down the road and on down if needed. But our goal, of course, is to build phase 2 at the Tulare Center. I'm estimating 6 to 10 years, maybe 8 to 10 years before that can be done. We just need the housing values to go up to draw down those bonds and some sort of a state match. So we need a little more growth at the Tulare campus. So this is our interim plan, and it allows our programs to have housing at the Tulare Downtown Annex. And Mr. McElmoyle's been really good to work with for this lease. And if there's any questions, let me know. It really, the terms have not changed at all, so.
And we have classes in there this summer already? Not yet. Is it fall or is it being used already?
So we had classes last year, but last year was electrician training and just very minimal architecture. I think there was one piece of equipment. they
Evenings
would-
only, right? I haven't seen any activity there during the day.
You
but
might
I mean, I'm up by
be, you
there
might
every
be
day.
right.
Okay,
And then nothing, I don't think anything this summer, and it would start fall.
okay.
And I listed the 2 programs, but I always forget the 2 that are moving down.
HVAC
Yeah.
and,
Environment, yeah, industrial automation, industrial maintenance, industrial automation, and environmental control technology courses.
Will they be during the day or are these mainly night programs?
I believe there'll be daytime courses as well,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be day and evening.
Got it.
Our HVAC and our industrial automation are all day, Monday through Friday.
Got it.
pretty much.
Okay.
And I'll just say, kind of a reminder that we thought we would have these funds. It was approved, the state voters approved Prop 51. The Board of Governors for the California Community Colleges recommended our project as one of the 29. And to date, there has been, I believe, 25 funded, and we're one of the few remaining. And so I believe when a new governor gets in, because if you might recall, the governor did not support Prop 51, and he's drug his feet ever since. So I don't know if there's any other thoughts on that, but hopefully next year, if not this year, so.
But you're saying even if you're anticipating next year, you're still saying it would take 6 years for us to get it done?
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, that was a different, next year would be building basic skills here. And the reason we're moving down there is just to free up our spot
Oh,
here.
that's,
See,
okay.
we have to
Yes.
demolish Buckeye
Yes, yes.
and build here.
Yes,
Get these programs located to the annex.
Yes.
Then, once we're at full capacity here, all of our eligibility for state matching funds can shift to Tulare.
got it.
And we got
Understood.
then we have a
Yes,
full
yes,
court
yes.
press.
Yes.
So we figured if we can get a 3-year lease on this thing now, Lori, it's less expensive than trying to rent it from them a
Yes,
year
yes,
at a
yes.
time.
Yep.
And
And that's how long it's gonna take to get
if
this
we
stuff
got
done here.
funded this fall, it would be at least 3 years.
Yes.
If more likely 5.
Makes
To
sense.
get demolished, funded, and then reconstructed.
Makes sense, okay, yep.
Yeah, my 6 to 10 was in reference to phase 2 at
Yes,
Tulare.
that's
Yeah, that's
different.
further out.
Really
Yep.
maybe 8 to 10 before we
The whole
could
thing's
even
done,
think about
exactly.
moving back
Got it.
there.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
we have a motion and a second for approval of item number 23 on the agenda, the lease agreement for the Tulare Downtown Annex. Is there any further discussion or questions regarding this item? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's not a
Opposed?
resolution.
It's not a resolution.
Oh, okay, good.
Motion carries. All right. So listen, this concludes our agenda for today. I want to thank you all for your attendance today. I know school is out, so we're appreciative of, school is out, but that doesn't mean you all aren't working.
Well, and summer school's not
And
out.
summer school's not out.
Yeah, I saw students.
And so,
Hey, I didn't get a
School's
parking
rolling.
parking spot in a circle, so I know school's
Easy,
in.
easy.
You didn't?
Nope.
So not only does this conclude our meeting, but it also concludes the tenure of President Carrizosa serving as our president and attending our meetings. And so I am very thankful for your service to the college, Stan. And I know as well, I'll give the other board members a chance, I know they're very appreciative as well. And I know that much has been accomplished in the short time that Stan has been our president superintendent here at COS. It did not come without lots and lots of hard work and collaboration, and I want to make that certainly clear. every time, I know that we had lots of things going on at the time that he was hired, and it seems like every day there was a drip, drip of bad news, and every time a piece of bad news hit, Stan, I would either call him or he would call me, and the thing that he would tell me was not to worry, that he was working on it and it would be handled, and I think that came to pass as well. Looking at Brent over there, it's probably not appropriate, but I would say that he has some big shoes to fill, but I think his size is a lot so we're looking forward to that transition as well. And I know that the whole COS community is very appreciative for the leadership that you've shown the college in general. And I know for me, I've only been president for a couple of years, but you've made my job as president very, very manageable, and always filled me in on what I needed to do, and I'm very appreciative of that, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you.
I have a couple of short comments. I would just like to say, I guess I'm gonna have to say it, I was honored and privileged to be president during Show Cause. I'm not sure that goes together, but I will say that I do remember a few members of my community, especially friends or colleagues who work also as board members, in Tulare or places around that I knew, and they said, oh, gosh, what a time for you to be president. It's gonna be terrible. You're on Show Cause, and that's just a terrible thing. And I remember telling them, no, according to my president, it's really not. It's gonna make us better. It's gonna make us stronger. So I appreciate that. I was able to share that with them with confidence that it's probably a good thing that it happened to our college, because it was what we needed to change things. But I think I only believe that in essence because we had the leadership we needed to change things. And the other thing, Stan, that I will remember from you is a quote that you've used a number of times with me, and I still laugh when I hear it, but you said your what would you call your grandpa?
Tata.
Your Tata, yeah, he's mine. I feel like he's mine too. I feel like I know him really well. But he said the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I believe we were lucky to get you, but yeah, we weren't lucky in all the successes we had. It was because you worked hard and your team worked hard. So I appreciate it, and we'll miss you. I have no doubt, though, you will be around in some capacity. We'll find you.
Stan, we appreciate you. I was president of the board when we hired you, and thank goodness the selection committee and the board of trustees were smart enough to hire you, and for your leadership and your transparency, and we're going to miss you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna skip all the things that anybody in this room can say. And I want to be more personal about it. I admire somebody that does what they have to do when it's unpleasant. Rearranging your staff like you did was unpleasant, but it transformed that part of the college. I appreciate the way that write this down, Brent. I've served with 7 presidents. You're the only one. Well, let me back up. Every January, we have our board retreats and really diligently form a plan for the coming year. You're the only president that ever completed every item on the list every year. And I was not prepared for somebody of that competence. That is amazingly capable.
And the list was long?
Yes, the list was long. You know, another thing too is that it's a balancing act in how to listen to the board and how to set them straight. But you got to do both. And I appreciate somebody who listened to me when I knew what I was talking about and explained to me how I was wrong when I didn't know what I was talking about. And not every superintendent president can do that, they tend to fall in one category or the other. They either don't listen to anything, or they say, yes, sir, to everything, even when it's stupid. And you're a rare man indeed, and I won't say I worship the ground you walk on, but I'm real proud I knew you.
Thank you, John. I was sharing with the staff earlier today, I just did some funny math, because I started as a superintendent in 1994 with Dinuba, and since 1994, I was superintendent with Dinuba, and then 10 years with Visalia, 2 years with Burbank, and now 6 years here at COS. And just rough math, I'm finishing my 602nd board meeting tonight, where I was the presiding superintendent or superintendent
Wow.
president. So no wonder I'm tired.
So the question, it begs the question, so the second Monday of
July.
of every month, what do you have planned?
Where will I be? Well, I want you to watch your staff's faces, because I'll be at home sending them some texts.
You'll be on Facebook Live.
And when they're laughing for no reason and you don't know why, you're thinking, I think Stan just sent them a text.
Like he doesn't already do that.
Yeah,
All right,
Yep.
well, I guess it's time. So thank you all once again, and we look forward to our next meeting.
I know. Good.